Mounting international outrage following a deadly airstrike that killed at least 7 aid workers in Gaza. The victims included Palestinians as well as citizens from Australia, Poland, the United Kingdom, the United States and Canada. Our countries are now demanding answers from Israel. British Foreign Secretary David Cameron says that the UK has called on Israel to conduct immediate investigations and provide a full, transparent explanation of what happened. A White House spokesperson has called the incident heartbreaking and reiterated the need for the protection of humanitarian aid workers. Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese echoed those sentiments.
This is just completely unacceptable. Australia expects full accountability for the deaths of aid workers, which is completely unacceptable. Aid workers and those doing humanitarian work, and indeed all innocent civilians, need to be provided with protection.
The workers were killed in 2 armoured vehicles of the World Central Kitchen when their convoy was hit. They were leaving a warehouse after unloading more than 100 tons of food and aid that was brought to Gaza by sea. The organisation insists that they had already coordinated their movements with the Israeli military. The IDF has since pledged to hold a fact-finding probe into the incident. For more, Alex Cadier joins us. He's live from Tel Aviv. Alex, Israel is vowing to conduct a thorough review at the highest levels of this incident, but it hasn't confirmed if it was behind the strike. How is this attack going to impact the ongoing aid efforts, which are so critical for the people in Gaza?
Yeah, well, that has actually just changed. In the last few seconds, we saw a statement by Prime Minister Netanyahu posted on social media describing the death of these aid workers as a tragic case of our forces unintentionally hitting innocent people in the Gaza Strip. The Prime Minister of Israel went on to say this happens in war and that they are checking to see what happened and are in contact with the governments and will do everything so that this does not happen again. So the Israeli Prime Minister acknowledging that this was an Israeli airstrike that killed the aid workers from the World Central Kitchen in Gaza. So certainly a very serious incident, and a confirmation from the Prime Minister himself shows you the seriousness of this particular incident. Now, to go back to your question about how this will affect the aid situation in Gaza, well, actually, if you speak to aid agencies operating in Gaza, they have been pointing to World Central Kitchen as one of the success stories of being able to get food to those desperately hungry, starving Palestinian people in the Gaza Strip. Now, World Central Kitchen has said it will suspend its activities in Gaza. That means that the ships that were unloading food in Gaza, the second ships that had travelled from Cyprus, we understand from Cypriot officials, have now turned back with 240 tons of food still on board. So this is obviously a very, very tragic incident for those involved, for the families of those involved. But this will have very, very serious humanitarian consequences for the starving population of Gaza as well.
Alex, we're also hearing that Israeli negotiators have come up with a new ceasefire proposal. What do we know about that?
Yeah, we've got a development on that front as well. Israeli negotiators from Shin Bet, the security agency, and the Mossad, the intelligence agency, as well as the IDF, will return from Cairo this afternoon, so in the next few hours, really, after an additional intensive round of negotiations. That's according, again, to the Prime Minister's office. They offered a new proposal to the mediators, the Egyptian mediation team, which will be now passed on to Hamas, and that will be the big question as to whether or not Hamas accepts this deal or looks to negotiate further. Israel saying that it expects the mediators to take vigorous action regarding Hamas to advance the negotiations towards a deal. So movement, but we'll have to wait until Hamas's response to see if that means progress. Now, what could that mean practically when it comes to these negotiations? We know that Israeli officials in the last couple of days have said that Israel has shown new flexibility on the return of civilians to northern Gaza. That was one of the demands made by Hamas. And Israel, we don't have the details yet, but we understand that Israel had shown more flexibility for civilians returning to northern Gaza. Now, two more sticking points remain to be resolved. One is the full withdrawal of Israeli troops. That's a demand by Hamas from the Gaza Strip. Totally unacceptable to Israeli negotiators and the Israeli government. The third is a longer-lasting ceasefire. Again, that cannot be considered and cannot be contended with by Israel. So some movement. We'll have to wait and see if that movement means progress.
Alex, meanwhile, an airstrike on an Iranian embassy in Syria that's killed at least 7 people that we know of. That is increasing tensions between Israel and Iran. It's at a new high right now. Tehran is now vowing to exact revenge after that. Are the chances of a regional spillover just growing?
Yes, absolutely. In a word, they are absolutely growing. And this conflict between Hezbollah, which is Iran-backed, in the south of Lebanon on the Israeli border, and Israeli forces, Hezbollah rockets flying into Israel, Israeli airstrikes flying back in retaliation. That has been simmering for weeks. The real fear now is that could blow up into all-out war. We saw the Iranian Ayatollah Khamenei saying Israel will be punished and we will make them regret this crime. We've also heard the Israeli defense minister hinting that every day and everywhere Israeli forces will strike to prevent the build-up of enemy forces. Now, it is not just in the north of Israel. That is something that will cause fears of escalation across the Middle East. You have Gallant, the Israeli defense minister, saying they will strike across the Middle East if they need to. And that will cause fears of escalation ranging up and down Israel, here in Tel Aviv, across the country, worries. And just last night, we've seen rockets flying in to the north of the country, and a real fear that simmering conflict could become an all-out war in the north.
Alex, thank you for that. Alex Cadier there in Tel Aviv.